Hey guys, I hope you're doing great today. This is our chapter number 17 and we are going to talk about the Docker Container Registry. Guys, we know that what a Docker image is. We were running Docker pull Ubuntu and we were pulling Ubuntu Nginx BusyBox images on our local VM. So you also know that now we can have our images on our local machine. But what happens if I want to share those images with my colleagues, with other developers, with software engineers to try to work on those images? That's where the Docker Container Registry comes in. The Docker Container Registry is a public cloud registry where we can host the images, the Docker images, so that those images can be pulled on other developer systems and those images can be worked on by other software engineers. So the container registry is a centralized point where we can store our Docker images. All those Docker images have proper tags and releases. We can tag our images according to the versions, according to the release, etc. So guys, Docker provides free public registry where we can host our Docker images. And apart from that, Google Cloud platforms also have a container registry. Azure also offers a container registry, and Elastic Container Registry is offered by AWS. But for your learning, you can sign up on Docker Hub and you can create a public or private repository, image repository, to push your images to the Docker Hub, and then you can pull those images anywhere in the world. Guys, you don't have to confuse with a registry and a repository. A registry is Docker Hub, Elastic Container Registry, Google Cloud Platform Registry, or Azure Container Registry. But repository is something else where you actually store your images. For instance, let me clear it with the following diagram, in which you can see this is, for instance, our registry. It is Docker Hub. Okay, hub.docker.com, hub.docker.com. This is our registry where we are going to store our images. But how we can store those images? Those images can be stored in a public or a private repository. Okay, those repositories have the images with tags like my image. Okay, this is my image colon version 1, version 2, version 3. That's how we tag the images. Now this is a public repository, okay, and this is a private repository. And the same thing, it can be my image colon version 1 colon version 2, and that's how we tag the images using the Docker tag command. And then we can push our images to the public and private repository. Now there is a slight difference between the public repository. This is my public repo repository and this is my private repository. Well, as the name says, the public repository or the public images are available or accessible to anyone, but for private repository, the users must authenticate to access the images stored in the private repository. In the free plan on Docker Hub, hub.docker.com, we can create unlimited public repositories, but the free plan offers only one private repository, and we will create both public and private repositories. So now there is another question, that how we can push the Docker images to these public or private repositories and how we can pull them on other VMs. Okay, so that's how it works. So for instance, I am a developer and I want to have the images, the updated images on my VM. This is my VM or EC2 instance, okay? And I'm working on something and I want to pull the Docker images from my private repository on hub.docker.com, Docker Hub. So this is my private repository, okay? This is my private repository which stores the images. Private repository, my image colon version 1. For instance, I want to have this image pulled on my VM. So I would first run the docker login command. I have to log in to the Docker private registry. Okay, I would need to run docker login, and I would have to provide the credentials, the username and password of my registry or repository. These are the credentials of Docker Hub. You have to provide the username and password. So when we run the docker login command, it will ask us for the username and password of Docker Hub. Okay, now we will authenticate our registry, container registry, which is Docker Hub, on our VM. So username and password. Once we will log in on our VM, then we can pull the Docker images from our private repository. So I can run Docker pull and my image, and I don't have to give the username and password again and again. So that's how, guys. First we need to log in, and then I would give the username password, and then I can run the docker pull command. For instance, I'm working on this image and I have made some changes, and now I want to push the updated version of the same image in the private registry or private repository, which is my image version 1. Then I would use the docker push command, docker push command, and I don't have to give the credentials again and again. But if I am logged out from my VM and I would run the docker pull or docker push command, then it would give us the authentication or authorization error. And now, for instance, I have the updated version of my image. It would be pushed to this repository, and we would have the updated version of the image with updated tab. So that's how, guys, we need to log in to Docker Hub or ECR or Azure Container Registry using the credentials. When we are logged in, then we can run the docker pull command to pull the images. We can run the docker push command to push the updated images. So another thing I would like to repeat again, that why do we need the private repository? Because our image can contain the source code, the binaries and dependencies that we don't want to have publicly available. So that's why, from security point of view, we should not share our code, our images to anyone in the public. So the recommended process is to create only the private repositories where you can store your images on Docker Hub. So from our learning perspective, we are going to create a free account on Docker Hub, and we are going to push and pull our images in our private repository. So let's get started in our lab session. Okay, guys, now I'm going to log in hub.docker.com. So before that, we need to create an account on hub.docker.com. So this is the URL. You can by the way, search on hub, docker hub, and this first container image library, this URL, and you can click on that to log in to sign up on this free account. Okay, and we will have this screen. Click on the sign up button, and your email, my my email is devopsmolvi@gmail.com, and the username and password here. So you can sign up on dockerhub.com, and once you click on the sign up button, you will have to verify your email address, and once verified you will be able to create repositories on Docker Hub, and also you can create public or private repositories on hub.docker.com. So it is required to create a free account. Now I will log in. So this is the password, and I would log in, saving the password. So now you can see create a repository, push container images to a repository on Docker Hub. So we are going to create our first repository, and this namespace, I would use the same namespace as DevOps Molvi. And now the repository name. So now I would create the repository name as web images. For instance, these are web images, and you can see that it is saying using 0 of 1 private repositories. Okay, and you can see the plans here. For personal or free use, we can only get one private repository. Okay, and these are other plans uh, for your teams. If you want to get these plans, you have to pay $9 per seat per month, and this is pro plan, in which we have to give $5 per month. And you can see we can have unlimited private repositories, but here in our personal free plan we can only get one private repository but unlimited public repositories. So you can create unlimited public repositories, but your images would be public. And so for our learning, we are going to create only one repository, and this would be private, and you can see it would be only visible to you. So let us create our first repository. Okay guys, I've created it, and now it is also showing us the command to push the images. Now this would be the command docker push, that our images must have this tag. Okay, DevOps Molvi / web images, and tag name version 1, version 2, or release name 1.0.00, etc. So now we have created our repository. Now let us log in to our VM so that we can push our first image on our repository. So I would log in, and I'm in my VM. Clear the screen. Docker images. I have these images. We are going to push this minimum image so that we can have a luxury of time to pull and push multiple images. I would tag this image according to the repository name. This is really important. We must have the same tag to push the images to this repository. If the name or the tag do not align with each other, we cannot push the images into that specific repository. So you guys can see that this repository is empty. Push some images to see them appear here. So we are going to push the images, and I would use this name to tag my images accordingly. Docker tag busybox, okay, the current image, and the image you are going to tag. For instance, this is our version 1. Okay, now another separate image would be created. Okay, we now have 3 images. Now this is our image, and we can push this image to our private repository. How? Docker push and version 1. Now it will ask us for the password. Okay, you can see that denied, requested access to the resource is denied. I explicitly run this command so that you can see for pushing the images to our private repository needs authentication. Okay, now I will log in to the Docker Hub from my VM. Docker login, it says that login with your Docker ID or email address to push and pull images from Docker Hub. Okay, now I will use the username DevOps Molvi and the password. Okay guys, we are now logged in, and you can see it is saying login succeeded. So now we are able to push our images to the Docker Hub repository. I will use Docker images. Now you can see we can push this image. Docker push command would be used to push the images. First we tag the image according to our repository name. Okay, you see that we are using the Docker tag command and our current image and the new tag, new image name. Now we are going to push this image to our repository, and it should not give us the access or authentication error because we are logged in, from our VM, and we shared the credentials, we gave the credentials, username and password. Now we are going to push our first image in our Docker repository, private repository. My net is a bit slow, and that is why it is taking a little bit time. I think my internet was slow, that is why I got this error. So that's why I tried to push the image again, and it says that the layer already exists, so it means that the image has already been pushed. Now we will refresh and we'll see whether we have the image or not. All right guys, we can see that our image has been pushed to the repository, and you can see it is busy box, and these are the information regarding our image. So now let's suppose I am using another version of this image has been updated, and now we have another version of this image. So for instance, Docker tag busy box, and I will use DevOps Molvi web images colon 1.0.1. So that tag is a bit different. Okay, now I will push this tag again to our repository 1.0.1, and it should not take much time to push the image because there is already a layer exists, and we must now have a new tag for this Docker image. Okay, web images, and this is our private repository, and now we can see the tags here as well. Here the tags option, and all the tags would appear here. You can see we have version 1, and then we have 1.0.1. so that's how guys we can push the images. Now for instance, I would remove these images. Okay, Docker images, and I will remove these images. Docker RMI, I will remove this image as well, version 1, and I will also remove this image 1.0.1. Now we should not have these images anymore on our VM. Now I want to pull those images, and let us suppose that I am logged out. Docker logout command, I have been logged out. But for pulling your images from the private repository also requires authentication. Okay, now I'm running docker pull this command to pull the image from my private repository, and you can see that it is saying you are denied because you have to log in, because I logged out. Now I would log in back, Docker login, and I will log in again, DevOps Molvi and password. Okay, now I am logged in. Now I can pull the images on my VM. For instance, this is a remote VM, any other VM. So we can log in using the docker login command, and now we can pull the images from our private repository, and you can see our image has been pulled. So for instance, if I want to pull any other tag, docker pull and version 1, so we can pull this image as well. So docker images, I am having all these image tags here, and that's how, guys, we can log in to the Docker Hub repository registry from our VM, and that's how we can tag images and push and pull images to and from Docker Hub. So that was a quick and short tutorial to let you know, guys, how we can store our images on Docker Hub. The case is similar whether you are using Azure Container Registry or Elastic Container Registry from AWS, because we have used it as well. And you just have to use the docker tag command to tag according to the repository name. Now, for instance, this is my repository. I must have this tag for my images, and I must tag my images according to the repository name to push the images or pulling the images from this repository. So the process is almost the same. You must have the tags similar to the repository name. You have to log in on your VM using the docker login command. Once you share the credentials, you can pull or you can push the images from or to your private repository. So guys, we can have only one private repository, and recommended way is to create private repositories on Docker Hub. Since I have only free plan, so you can also create a free account on Docker Hub and create a private repository to push and pull the images. In the next chapter, we are going to start with Docker Compose. I hope that you're watching my earlier lectures on Docker. It is going to be completed soon, and we will have a full-fledged Docker course uploaded on my YouTube channel. I would really appreciate if you subscribe my channel and support me. I will watch you in the next video.